diving into this master's program to create a high growth startup. How on earth is it relevant or even possible that cows get high? Well, a few years back, you may have come across a book called Stealing Fire, which explored the notion that we as a species every year, even by the most conservative metrics available, spend in the region of $4 trillion to alter our states of consciousness. Okay. But the book actually began exploring the notion that across the spectrum of nature, right, from cows to monkeys to birds to possibly even giraffes, I can't remember, right? Animals will consistently put their own safety at risk in order to alter their consciousness. In some cases, to eat the mushrooms that grow on the dung, or to gorge on the rotting fruit that, of course, is full of alcohol. All right. So what there seems to be, and particularly if we look at the cave art from thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ago, depicting things like mushrooms and depicting likely shamanic states of consciousness, there seems to be a hardwiring across all living species to alter their states of consciousness, to seek out states of novelty, to seek out different perspectives. Okay, so why might that be? And why might it be relevant now? Well, no one would disagree that as a species, we face, innumerable, like I don't have enough fingers and hands and toes to count the number of potentially world-ending crises that we face. All right. So how do we get out of that? How do we find a way forward? How do we possibly cultivate, curate a happy ending to the human story, or even just like a happy continuation, right? And the answer is that the solution, that old Einstein quote, we're not going to solve the problems that we've created with the same level of thinking that created them. Okay. And so this has got me thinking about, well, actually, how do we access breakthrough insights? How do we access thinking that goes beyond the current level, the current paradigms? And the answer is staring us in the face. Almost, take a group of, people in an office, and one of them is going to have some kind of neurodivergence, right? Neuro-difference. And this has become particularly pertinent for myself recently, having been now at age 40, officially diagnosed with ADHD. And I've mentioned before, there may be times when I will wear proudly that label, and other times where I may still be inquiring into it myself, like examining what does that really mean for me from an identity perspective. But what is in no doubt, the more that I've now researched this particular trait of neurodivergence, is that we do not see the world in the same way. At times, to the infuriating expense of my partner and friends who are like, George, why can't you just do this? Or why are you asking that question? That's a ridiculous question, right? And yet, as I've been through the pit and the mire of trying to work out how to fit into this venture studio that I've committed to, this venture building journey that I've committed to, more and more it's becoming clear that if I try and follow a neurotypical process, I'm probably going to end up chewing my own face off. All right. So then what might it look like for me to double down on the essence that actually allows me to create great value in the world? And that is invariably bound up in the different ways I see the world because of my neurodifferences. All right. And so that got me to thinking. If we need breakthrough insights, if we need novel thinking, if we need different perspectives, how do we build organizations, or even at least create processes and ways of operating so that the vast untapped human resource of neurodivergence can be channeled prosperously, profitably, and to compassionate and beautiful ends? And one of the ways that I've always seen myself, I think because of so to give you some context, one of the ways that ADHD and ADD will show up is through absolute passionate fascinations. And so I was chatting to one of my cohort colleagues, John, who's like he himself, like neurodivergent, he's got the diagnosis, and he's like passionately fascinated about analysis and like spreadsheets and stuff. I can't imagine anything like worse. And I've given voice on this very show to my challenges with that, right? So how do we support those areas of fascination to be like gainfully employed within an organization? And the concept of a synergist is what has been kind of percolating in my brain and in my heart, of someone who can be liberated to pursue their areas, like a neurodivergent person who could be liberated to pursue their areas of special interest, their areas of fascination, and in so doing, add vast amounts of value to an organization, because in each of those areas of fascination, simply because of how they're wired and how broadly they've researched those areas of fascination, they are going to bring into the organization breakthrough insights, connections, intuitions that will move things forward in a way that someone neurotypical simply couldn't do. But if we try and have the KPIs, the metrics, the performance indicators, the quantifications of value for that person, for that role, that are based on a kind of neurotypical logic, we wouldn't get the best either out of the person or out of quantifying the value that might be being added. So that's my current working premise, is to explore what might lie down this path of exploring perhaps a brand new role specifically designed for neurodivergent people to unleash their gifts into an organization. And what might that role have to look like? What are some ways and methodologies of being able to work that? And also, what are some ways to evaluate and assess the value and impact? So that's my current question. I'm going to have a coaching meeting with it about it in a moment. But as ever, I'd love to get your take on it. Are you yourself neurodivergent? Do you know someone who's neurodivergent? What are some of their fascinations? What are some of the ways they see the world differently? What are some of their challenges in actually trying to bring those gifts into the world? What are some of their challenges around flourishing? And I feel like the more that I kind of pluck on this thread, perhaps the closer I might get to connecting with the people who can together map something possible. And then we can test it, and then we can iterate it, and then we can scale it. So that's perhaps the possibility. And I'd love to hear from you if that possibility sparks something in you. All right. Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow.